More to the point on the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. The Michigan Chamber of Commerce was perhaps one of the youngest state chambers of commerce in the nation. It was not organized and established till 1959. And you had, many local chambers of commerce, that probably been established back in the 1800s. I'm sure the Detroit Chamber has its origins back, maybe even pre-Civil War. So when the Michigan Chamber of Commerce got organized, I find it a little ironic that a number of people in the business community thought that the Michigan Manufacturers Association was much too Republican, and they needed another voice for the business community that maybe could talk to Democrats and have some influence with Governor Soapy Williams and things like that. The first person who was chosen to be the president of the Michigan Chamber of Commerce was a gentleman by the name of Harry Hall. He had had a very successful career in chamber management. He had run the Minneapolis Chamber of Commerce. He had been the head of the Dayton, Ohio Chamber of Commerce before he accepted the presidency of the Michigan Chamber. Harry was the president of the Michigan Chamber for the next 17 years. And during that time period, the Michigan Chamber of Commerce, did some lobbying, but for the most part, it didn't play that active a role in the public affairs of the state. Harry liked to write, and I think probably penned a number of op-eds, and of course the chamber had its own magazine, and he would probably pontificate in that publication. But change, I think, was coming with the Michigan Chamber of Commerce when in 1976, Jim Barrett, who had been a vice president at the Michigan Chamber of Commerce under Harry Hall, was selected to be the new president of the Michigan Chamber. And what was unique about Jim was that he was only 33 years of age when he became president of the Michigan Chamber of Commerce. Jim, I think, had a vision that for the Michigan Chamber of Commerce to be effective, it had to be involved in the political arena. And with the enactment of the Michigan Campaign Finance Law and having provisions in that allowed the business community to establish and operate political action committees, or as the statute says, separate segregated funds, the vehicle was there to begin to organize the Michigan business community. And I was fortunate that when he hired me, he had that expectation and frankly allowed me widely leeway to implement that vision, for the Michigan Chamber.
So you came in, hired in essence, I guess, by Jim Barrett. And
I was his first professional hire.
Okay, and he gave you, your head and lead, and you could do whatever you want, really, within reason. And what were the first challenges beyond, the new campaign finance law? I mean, what were some of the things that you started to do or were done by you and with others in the chamber over the next, let's say, decade?
Well, the first thing was, I looked at I tried to become a student of that Michigan Campaign Finance Law, so I knew it inside out. And, one of the things that I decided very early on is that the contribution limits in the Michigan Campaign Finance Law were reasonably low. One political action committee could only contribute $2,500 to a candidate in the primary and another $2,500 in the general election. For the state senate, it was $4,500 per election. I knew then and there that one large monolithic business PAC was not going to change Michigan politics. What we needed to do is proliferate the number of political action committees on the business side in Michigan so that we could compete against, organized labor. Organized labor had some real advantages in the political arena back in 1978. Number one is that they didn't have to go out and ask people to make a voluntary personal contribution out of their disposable income to contribute to the political action committee. They could take mandatory union dues dollars and then make those contributions to candidates for state legislative and statewide office. Now, it was more difficult for the business community to raise dollars because we would have to, number one, go to management employees or members and ask them to make a voluntary personal contribution to the political action committee. That led me then to say what we needed to do initially was to form a whole lot of PACs. And so I put together 3 PAC kits. I had a PAC kit for corporations, I had a PAC kit for trade associations, I had a PAC kit for chambers of commerce. And I ran around the state and held workshops on how to form a political action committee. And I had all the forms and resolutions and bylaws and checklists to do that. And a lot of those workshops, I took Colleen Engler along with me. She was the manager of economic education at the Michigan Chamber. Her husband at the time was John Engler, a state representative, soon to run for the state senate. And she had been a state representative from Bay City, and then was defeated in the 1976 election by Jim Barsha, who would go on to further legislative service and then in Congress and then back to the legislature. And Colleen was always, at our luncheon, following the workshop, she'd basically tell, the war stories on her campaign against Barsha and how labor basically, had her defeated and had Jim Barsha elected. So we did that, in a number of different communities. I even took the road show up to the UP. We had a workshop in Escanaba, a workshop in Marquette.
Were these generally chambers of commerce? Were they the core of the people that you met with in these various communities?
Actually, the core was people that were likely to be the new PAC managers.
Okay.
Were
they politically oriented, politically engaged, thought about it?
Well, some of them had thought about it, and they knew they were going to get that responsibility.
So you kind of put this together on a local level from scratch, almost build it up.
Yeah. Now
right?
we did not. I didn't try to go out and form a chamber PAC network. That would come later, after 1981. But the initial one was to try to get corporations to form PACs and get trade associations to form PACs. And then by November or December of '78, the number had begun really to proliferate. And we had well over 100 PACs established by that time. And so I then put together an entity that we called the PAC Exchange Council. And we took all of these people that had these new PAC responsibilities thrust upon them, and we would share with them information, ideas, techniques, and then they would have somebody to call if they had questions. And that's one thing I always tried to do in my career, was I always tried to make me the expert. I didn't want to be there just to pour coffee. I wanted to be there to be the knowledgeable one, so that people would call me and ask questions and things like that.